It's amazing to have Justin Jesso with us today. This is Faith in Media's podcast for Christians in Media. Justin, thank you so much for joining today. How are you? It is, I imagine, a different time zone that you're in. Tell us a little bit about where you are, and how you've been doing, because I believe I'm not the first interview in a long line of interviews.
Well, first of all, Carla, thank you for having me. You may not be the first, but you are so far my favorite. Uh,
I will
I'm
take
in
it. Thank you.
I'm in London. I've been in London since Monday. I've been all over Europe this summer. I've been on tour since June 22nd. Funnily enough, my first stop on my tour was the Sound of Freedom premiere in Miami, which happened on June 22nd. And then
Mm.
after that, I did a couple of gigs in the States and then popped over to Europe for my first stop was Lollapalooza, Sweden, where I
Uh,
played with my DJ buddy Kygo. And this summer has been a combination of Sound of Freedom premieres and events,
mhm.
my own tour dates and festivals, and traveling with my DJ buddy Kygo and doing shows with him. And we're almost at the tail end. I almost get to go home to LA where I'm
Oh,
from. But I love being on tour and abroad, and London is one of my favorite places. So I'm very happy to be here. Where are you?
I'm also in the UK, funnily enough, hence why you're here. I'm actually
I love
based
it.
just outside of London towards the borough of Reading, so kind of a little bit away from where London is, away from the bustle.
Oh, great.
But it's so great to have you here. And you've already spoken about, obviously, your connection is with the Sound of Freedom film that is going to be
Yes.
coming into our cinema shortly. A huge, important, powerful, moving story
Yeah.
featuring Jim Caviezel. One, I think that probably is going to be a little bit of a historical landmark in some ways. How did it feel to be connected with this project?
Honestly, I'm just honored to be connected with the project. For me, what happened was I got a call from my buddy Fernando Garibay, who's a fantastic music producer. He's worked with Lady Gaga and U2
Mm,
and a bunch. He's worked with everybody, and he's a good friend of mine, and we've worked on a bunch of different records together. And he started talking to the Angel Studios group, and called me out of the blue one day and said, "Okay, Justin, I I have these friends. They have this movie." And they need an end title credit theme song. And I know you and I can write it. And we don't have much time, but and I was busy. I was sick. I
oh,
was just getting ready to go on tour and didn't really have any time. And he goes, Justin, just watch the movie. Just watch it. And
mm,
you're going to want to write this theme song. And so he sends me the movie. And I'm like, okay, okay. And I'm like half falling asleep. And I push play on the movie and I'm glued to it. And so I watch
wow.
the movie and then I watch it again and I call him and I'm like, okay, I'm coming into the studio tomorrow. We have to write this song. So that's how it started. And I got to the studio and I said, okay, this song needs to have four things. It needs to speak to the kids and give them hope. It needs to speak to the traffickers, saying, I'm gonna find you and give them fear. It needs to speak to love, and it needs to
Mm,
speak to faith. And if we can
mm,
nail those four things, then I think we'll have the end title credit track for this film. So we did that. We wrote the song. We sent it that night to the Angel Studios team, who circulated it to the creative team. Everybody fell in love with the song, and they had already sent the hard drives with the film out to the theaters. So they did a 48-hour recall, recalled all of the hard drives, put the movie with the song back on the hard drives and resend them out. And everybody thought that they were crazy for doing this, but that's what they did because they believed in the song
wow.
so much. Yeah.
I mean, I'm listening to the song. I had to listen to it a couple of times. It sounds interesting in the way that you describe when you first encountered the film and had to like rewatch it to really allow it to
Yeah.
like, hold on, did I just see what I just saw? I feel the
Yeah.
same way about listening to your song. There
Thank
is
you.
so it alludes to such a depth of connection with what's happening there. And I love that you actually shared that it has these four components to how you structured it. And it sounds so
Yeah.
definite. It sounds like you knew exactly what needed to be communicated through it. Um, Kind of what was the inspiration? You mentioned that you wrote the song for the film, but what did you
Yeah.
draw from to actually kind of formulate what became what is now the song, The Sound of Freedom?
honestly, so much of it was derived from the film. I mean, we had references of we listened to a bunch of other movie soundtrack songs. We listened to Rihanna. We listened to
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that we talked about was, because we wanted it to hit these 4 points, how do we write a song that says four things at once?
Yeah.
And one of the thoughts we had was Every Breath You Take, right? Because that song, it can be interpreted many different ways. And so we loved the idea that it could be a love song, but it could also be a little bit scary, but it could also be, so we talked about how to kind of convey that message lyrically, and then musically. We wanted it to have this haunting tie-in and gravitas to the movie.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do a disservice to the message. We wanted to amplify and
Mm.
capture the message. And one of my favorite things that I believe was somebody on the Angel Studios team told me was, what they love about the song is you watch this movie for 2 hours and you're taken by the message, which is, first of all, the awareness that child trafficking is happening, which I didn't have the awareness that child trafficking was happening at the scale that it's happening. And then the idea that we need to do something about it and we need to continue to raise awareness. And all of that happens when you watch the film. And then you walk away from the film and you go about your day, and you forget, right? You just kind of go about your day, and this experience that you had gets smaller and smaller in the background. And then you hear this song. And in 2.5 minutes, it brings you back emotionally to the place that you were when you watched the movie for 2.5
Yeah.
hours. And it's that little reminder that makes you go, oh, right, this is important. We need to do something about this. There are kids out there who are being taken. And that's what I love about this song, and the message and the way that we structured it is, it brings you back in 2 minutes to the emotionality that you felt watching the movie. And it's that little reminder and that little spark.
And that is not an easy feat to have achieved. And I think that you guys, whoever you collaborated with, have really bullseyed with that purpose, and you've landed on that. How did you manage to condense, like you said, this movie is so huge, it's 2.5 hours,
Yeah.
and been able to condense it and actually find a way to kind of linger onto the watcher, or linger onto the audience of it, by just listening to the song. It reminds them, takes them straight back there. That is a skill that I think not many songwriters or singers or artists, I think they desire to have it, but I can definitely feel that you've achieved that. Is that something
Thank
that
you.
you feel is something that you have kind of taught yourself to do, or is it just something that it just has to be there in the moment to be able to capture it as an artist who writes for something like a film like this?
I think it's, some of it is just, I started off as a songwriter, right? So I started off writing songs for Ricky Martin and Maluma and the Backstreet Boys, and DJs like Armin van Buuren and Kygo. So, some of it is just, this is what I've been doing for a long time, and trying to get into that place is important to get the song across and get truth in the song. But also it comes down to good collaborators. And, Fernando Garibay is a genius. And I was lucky enough to work with him on this as he brought me in. And his guys, Danny and Miro, are fantastic. So the four of us sat in that room and we created this thing. And, it was really Fernando creating the space for us to do that work.
Wow.
That, and being the guide for the work that allowed us to ultimately get there. And then, once he can guide and point me in the right direction, then I can go and say, okay, I know how to execute this. Both from a writing standpoint and a performance standpoint, but it really is the collaborative effort of the right people that know what they're doing that kind of allows us to get there.
Isn't it amazing how
then we hope that we did, right? Because we just kind of do it.
Absolutely. But
we
isn't that
hope it
just
works.
I think that you guys have done an incredible job listening to the song and seeing how the combination, even with the film visuals that has now been made into the the official music video, that combination, it's just sparking off each other. Isn't it amazing how powerful collaboration can be? It's one of my favorite things. And to see things this powerful as a result of the efforts and input of multiple people with different forms of genius to bring to the pot is always such a wonderful thing to experience. So I guess a huge thank you to you for putting yourself in this position to submit to that process is what we should be saying. I just wanted to say as well, you mentioned that you come from a lineage of musicians and artists as well. This is in the DNA. Do you feel like coming from such an extensive background of family members who have been musicians at key points in history, that really has been the largest influence out of the kind of like the formation of your career? Would you say there's something else going on there too?
No, funnily enough, I don't even credit it. So I think what you're referring to is my great grandfather, whose name I took, Jesso. Yeah, my great grandfather was, his nickname was Jesso, and he was a band leader in the 1920s in Chicago who used to play piano for Al Capone. And then he was a teacher, and he also had a jazz band. And I never met him, but I've always been fascinated by him, you know, as I feel a bit of like, you know, not that I believe or disbelieve in reincarnation, but there's definitely, you know, in my family, I'm the one who carries on that legacy of music. And he, you know, he was never a famous musician. He was just a musician in Chicago who may or may not have had mob connections. And you know, may or may not have seen some things, but no, I mean, I was just always, I was the kid who went for the toy microphone over the toy football, and music has always been fascinating to me, and performance has always been fascinating to me, and you know, I had really great champions in my parents, particularly my mother, who saw it and went, oh, okay, this is who he is. And in a very unstage mom way, and in a very supportive way, pushed me towards music and writing and theater and stage and film and you know, and the arts, and but at the same time kept me away from it in a professional capacity until I was older, which at the time I resented because like I booked, you know, a national tour, and then I'd book a TV show, and you know, when I was 9, and you know, she was like, no, we're not doing any of that. We're going to keep you in Chicago, and you're going to be a kid. And I'm really grateful that she did that, because I think that my life would be, you know, quite different, and I'd be quite confused now if I didn't have that really solid upbringing with amazing friends and amazing structure and amazing family, and you know.
That's incredible. And to have had your gifts identified by someone to champion it for the long haul, I think we need more people like that just in general, because many of us are big dream carriers, but it always takes, I like to describe a village to get everybody to their destination. No one really gets to go there alone. I wanted to ask, in terms of this, your music, clearly from the example of this song alone for the film of Sound of Freedom, is just so powerful. When you became an artist and it became such a part of you and your identity, did you imagine kind of the impact that your music would have, or was it always maybe just about the ability to have the creative space?
No, I had no idea. And my favorite thing, and the reason I do it now, and the thing that keeps me going, is the reaction that I get from others that have listened to the music, and hearing how it affects them. And what's so crazy is everybody has their own experience with it, and it affects people differently. So, you know, for example, I have a song called 400 Trillion that's I wrote it about a relationship, and it's about how there's a 1 in 400 trillion chance that we're alive, and that chance is so infinitesimally small that when you find love, you have to cherish it and tell the people that you love them. And so I wrote the song, I put it out, and I get this DM from this woman. She's a mom who has a 10-year-old son who's autistic. And she writes me and she says, 400 Trillion is my son's favorite song. I played it for him, and he was really fascinated by the numbers, because he relates to numbers. But, you know, because he's autistic, he has trouble connecting his words and his feelings. So he's 10 years old, and he's never said, I love you, to his mother. And she said, well, I had just kind of resigned myself to understanding that he may never tell me that he loves me, even though I know that he does. And so she said, and then I played him 400 Trillion. He was fascinated by the numbers, so he dove right in, and he asked me what it was about. And she told him Well, it's about it. There's a 1 in 400 trillion chance that we're alive. And because that is such a small number,
Mm,
or it's such a big number, but it's such a small chance that we actually exist. We
yeah.
have to be excited to exist as the unique individual that we are. And when we have love in our life, we have to tell the people that we love them.
Yeah.
And he looked up at his mom and he said, I love you, mom.
I can't.
For
I
the
would have broken down and cried hearing that. How did you cope with that?
with tears. He's
Honestly.
like, I mean, and now I've told the story a couple of times, but when I did it told the story the first 20 times, like I couldn't get through it without absolutely
Wow.
just breaking down. And she said when she's writing it, she's like, tears are streaming down my face as I write this now because, and now I'm going to go there because I waited 10 years to hear that. And thank you so much because your song was the literal neural link for my son to
Mm,
understand what love is and how to
mm.
connect it and say it. And like, that is more mind blowing to me than anything I've ever experienced in my entire life.
And I think music
And
has
yeah,
this, doesn't it? It is such a powerful tool that it provides language. It gives people space to feel things that they don't really
yeah,
understand
yeah,
about the complexities of, like, say, just being human and existing in this very strange world, if I may
yeah,
say. And I think to have your voice and you allowing yourself to be part of, should I say, the machine that allows people to do that is incredible. And what a wonderful gift and a space and a privilege to occupy. What
yeah,
next for Justin Jesso after this is obviously a very big moment, I think in your career and having your voice on a film like this. What do you
yeah,
feel comes next for you having this experience yourself? And what do you think kind of developing as an artist yourself do you foresee coming from this
yeah.
experience?
So I'm working on an album. So
Amazing.
that's going to be coming together. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I will have all of the songs because I've been working on it for a while now and have gone into a couple of deep emotional holes to get some things out
Oh,
that I
isn't it
didn't know.
always? It's like giving birth. I'm sorry, I know that's probably a
Oh
really
my gosh.
strange thing to say, but
Yeah.
you are birthing something that comes from so deep within. It's
I
crazy. And those that do not
uh,
kind of occupy the creative space will never really know until you hear it from someone like yourself.
right. It's so I'm working on an album. I should start that rollout plan before the end of the year.
Amazing.
Obviously, this movie is still doing its thing, and so I'm excited to see where all of that goes. I'm still on tour for the summer, so after this tomorrow, I head to Norway to do a show in Tromsø with Kygo, and then we fly to Ibiza to do our last day of our Ibiza residency in Spain, or Ibiza, as I'm supposed to say.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I go home to I we're talking to them about getting me to the Mexico premiere, which might stop me from doing stuff. Uh, so we're talking. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of flying back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finally get to go home to LA where I live. And on the third, I'm performing at the Hollywood Bowl for the first time with my friend Michael Bolton, who I have a song with. Um,
Wow.
so that's the immediate. And then I'm moving house. So I have a week to do that. And then my parents come in. And then my best friend comes in to my new house. And then I want to take a week off and sleep because I've been going
Please
nonstop.
do that. I'm exhausted just listening to this itinerary.
Yeah. And then there's
Wow.
a couple of premieres for Sound of Freedom, and then there's a couple of different places I need to be, and then by October I'm probably back on the road.
Amazing. Justin, this has
Yeah.
been such a privilege talking to you. And thank you for sharing both your story, sharing also just the impact of what this film has done for you as an individual and as an artist. And
Yeah.
it's been inspiring to hear that you've been willing to put yourself in this space to be part of something so powerful that is, I believe, will continue to create waves around the world with what it's doing and its impact for
Hopefully.
people. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Hopefully.
thank you
I
so
mean,
much for being with us. This is amazing.
thank you so much for having me, and thank you for championing Sound of Freedom because it is an incredibly important message, and we need to spread awareness about child trafficking. It's something I didn't know until I watched the film,
Mm,
and it's amazing to me what an impact we can have and will have if we continue to spread the word and we continue to have awareness about it.
I love that. Thank you so much. God bless, Justin. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. I'll talk to you soon.